Well, Ant Farm is in Sydney. It's not a new educational toy, but rather a group of Americans who have unorthodox ideas about changing society. They chose their name because they believe their group has a similar structure to an ant farm, and furthermore, they like the underground connotations. The ambassadors of the alternative culture, talk today with Julie Foster.
With the development of technology and the invention of the digital video camera, CRTs, and videotape recorders, gave rise to the emergence of video art as a form of media for both artists and civilians. In order to understand the artistic uses of video art, knowledge of these technologies in early stages is crucial. Display video would not be possible today without the invention of the CRT, or cathode ray tube. The CRT is a vacuum tube which uses an electron gun to generate beams of electrons, striking a phosphorescent surface in the tube. This creates a small light spot on the display. Signals are then sent to deflecting coils, and the spot moves across the screen from right to left, top to bottom, creating a raster. Furthermore, the first portable video camera, Sony Portapak, allowed for more accessibility in the medium and gave everyday people the ability to document daily life. As we know, the media is how humans create extensions of themselves, as said by Marshall McLuhan. The camera was a way to document life through still images, but this invention of moving video was even more progressive for the concept of documenting experiences to recount them later or to broadcast to a population. One group of artists who embraced this art form in quite a unique way was San Francisco collective Ant Farm. Although the technology was a positive advancement towards more technological freedom and communication, Ant Farm used the technology as a critique of the mass adoption of television through their work. Ant Farm's performance art piece, Media Burn, uses video art as a means to critique consumer culture and political agenda through the symbol of a burning television. Their performance was made possible by influence of video art, and it was a critique of the current political and societal concepts through spectacle and video. Media Burn is an example of artists both utilizing a new media for their work while critiquing it.
Ant Farm was a subversive, interdisciplinary art group created by architectural historians in San Francisco from 1968 until 1978 by Chip Lord and Doug Michaels, who were later joined by Curtis Sherrier, Douglas Herr, and Hudson Marquise. Their countercultural group produced artwork that dealt with political and societal issues of the time, from issues of mediation, memorialization, and consumption in the U.S., primarily commenting on the post-World War II culture of mass media and television, conveying this through various forms of works, from manifestos, installations, media events, videos, and performances, while retaining a comedic and self-aware nature on a large media-inducing scale. The group goes on to describe itself as an art agency that promotes ideas that have no commercial potential, but which we think are important vehicles in cultural introspection. They demonstrate this through one of their earlier projects, called Inflatables, utilizing their use of playful and unique concepts to create a narrative about issues they are passionate about. Inflatables was an American tour of pneumatic structures, made from cheap and portable materials of polyethylene and tape, produced in opposition of the brutalist architectural movement and the excessive consumerism culture of the U.S. The piece, which had no fixed form, allowed those who want to participate to use their manual called Inflato Cookbook to create their own pieces and to experience the fluidity and the freedom to create without the need for any expert knowledge, which also helped to reinforce and promote their nomadic way of life, which was very prevalent during the 1970s. The group's work was heavily influenced by Buckminster Fuller, Archigram, Paolo Soleri, Marshall McLuhan, and the free speech and anti-war movement of the late 1960s to early 70s. Fuller, who was an architect, had a philosophy of more for less, which was greatly applied in their architectural installations and performances, such as the Cadillac Ranch Exposition in 1974, where 10 Cadillacs were buried in a row nose first in the barren part of Texas, as an acute critique of American car culture as well as a tribute to it, with many of their works following this theme of simplicity and obscurity on the exterior, with a deep and purposeful implication from the interior minds of its members. However, despite the intentions and the context behind these pieces, their legacy continues to focus on the finished product and the aesthetic, far more than the message that they hoped to convey. What made Ant Farm's work successful and memorable was that it touched on current topics in a humorous and intriguing way, along with its use of American iconography that generated nationwide news, which also helped form conversations and challenged people's beliefs surrounding politics, societal norms, architecture, culture, and technology. Their work was established and allowed the narrative to persist for decades.
The clearest way to understand media burn as a representation of new media is through the way in which the central act is presented. The two daredevils who ride in the Cadillac are introduced in a way that is carefully framed. For the live event, the drivers wearing opaque helmets emerge from the vehicle that are escorted to the Cadillac by security personnel in suits and sunglasses that serves to standardize them as an image of authority. The central participants of the act are not portrayed as people, but as dental-less elements of a system. These are not real bodyguards, and the crowd assembled to watch them is not very large. These elements are just frames that put the event into a form of a public art. In the video recording, you see this opening shoot is framed by the conspicuous lens that occludes the edge of the picture, reminding the viewer that the piece of new media they are watching is not reality, but a depiction of reality. The critique is that new media communicates message and images to people that are portrayed as reality, but are themselves production of framing even if they are not as obvious as the video. The fire set on the wall of TVs is not large, and the stack of television is not gargantuan size. The real representation comes after viewing the car crash through the set. The daredevils are given a pride as if they have made some great victory, but the truth is that the act has changed nothing. There are certainly strong symbols involving the destruction of these TVs, but the greatest representation of new media come from the act of framing the event as a performance art piece and the perspective forced during the video. The television in media burn are more than televisions. They are part of an entire society and a culture that uses technology to present a standardized image that is always framed by the dominant force of society, the masculinity of the Cadillac, and the forced grandeur of the national anthem and pledge. After making this point using symbols and framing of their own, Ant Farm switched to a footage from the local press covering the event to take a deeper look at how actual media reflects upon the art. Smartphones and TVs are mass-produced examples of consumer culture, but with very few presenters. They are only platforms that are barely moderated by the automated system and the bare minimum of personnel. In media burn, Ant Farm had to involve dozens to create a system of authority to present their fake event. Now the new media is a number of format, platform, and presentation modes. There is no longer just the television. The new media system of today is impersonal and universal. To some extent, the same focus on manufacturing media spectacles is still true in the modern era. Media sites are well known to run algorithms that prioritize media based on engagement, which would be very similar to the process critiqued in the media burn. However, one thing that is not reflected in media burn is the scale which these changes are made. Stunts such as media burn are performed every day, but the frames have become invisible to participants, and they cannot recognize the farce. The critique against nationalism of television as a new media is further seen in the tense build-up to the car crash. The video shows a black and white interior of the Cadillac where a countdown clock appears, and the daredevils ask to make contact with mission control. This would resemble the internationally televised American moon landings. Then the daredevils eventually contact media control. The connection between the U.S. as an imperial power and the U.S. as a media power are made very clear here. A counter-representation is seen through the fact that the grandiosity of the event is misplaced. Whether it is the first step on the moon, a death-defining stunt, or a low-budget performance art piece, new media is sure to control the terms of witnessing the event and what it's focusing on within it. Television is thus the paradigmatic example of how power is projected through new media. The closing section of the video make a more direct reference to the statistics surrounding televisions, showing that they are nearly ubiquitous, numbering in the million and being watched for dozens of hours. Despite the magnitude, these are not statistics of empowerment for television and the new media. This is text superimposed over footage of the cleanup crew piling the burn rags of television sets. The video is making the point that despite the absurd presence of television, they are inanimated objects that can be crashed into and burned. They do not have inherent power over people, but rather are parts of the cultural trend of consumption and mass. Televisions and the message they contain are produced and consumed at high volumes and at a continuous rate. But beyond their entertainment, Ant Farm makes the point that they also create a sense of reality by creating the spectacles and frames event to project message.